welcome to the X Factor podcast. I'm your host, Charles Epstein. Today I am speaking with none other than Debbie McGrath, CEO of HR.com, and per her LinkedIn page, a serial entrepreneur and a mother of five, which is an amazing thing to me as a father of one, which pretty much put me almost to the very edge of my abilities and patience. Love my daughter. But what it doesn't include is that she is a world traveler. I know this having spoken with Deb from various workplace locations from some of the world's most beautiful beaches and majestic ski slopes. And she joins us today from Jackson's Point, Ontario. Hey, Deb.
Hi, Charles. It's so great to be on the show.
It is. And I should mention, this is our first show on Riverside, the video platform. And you brought me kicking and screaming, having done podcasts for a number of years on other platforms. I just want to let anybody know if there are any glitches or weird things, don't adjust your screens. It's probably me making an awkward transition, but we'll be good. Anyway, thanks, Steph, for taking the time. Really do appreciate it. Most of our listeners are HR.com members. They're AIX members. They are HR professionals who, of course, know of HR.com over these many years. Some are tech people. Some are just business people who may be unfamiliar with HR.com and all the work you've done over these past 25 plus years. So if you would, give those people sort of a high level description of what you do.
Sure. So, actually, I've been in the HR space with a heavy slant on technology and staffing actually for 37 years. Okay. So, it's a long time. It's almost the same amount of time I've been with my husband, and it's a long time. That's where I got all
There
this
are a
gray
lot of
hair.
questions, or we can go down a complete rabbit hole just based on that, but we're not going to.
Yeah, that's appreciated. So, but I graduated with a computer science degree and a business degree. And I think, what it taught me is not how to program, but it taught me how to be logical, curious, and think big, right? Because this was a very, very long time ago. So, HR.com, when it started 27 years ago now, we were focused on just creating a destination where people could go and aggregate content from. So if you think there was print publications, newspapers, everything coming together, in 2005, we moved more to a community where all of our content came from our members of our community. So that was around the same time as LinkedIn starting and Facebook and all of those people who obviously have a wider audience and a lot more money than just our HR friends. But we have been very successful in building out a niche of just HR people who contribute the best content, the best education training, and the best community for HR people. And we always lead with technology, which is interesting. So for 20 years, we've been building this back end system that does everything to enable our community. So we kind of know what everybody's looking for, what the hot trends are, research that we should do, listening to our members about what's their sore spots or how they can grow in their career. And the last 2 years, we spent actually working on that technology to update it. And we are about to go live on a whole new tech stack and spin it out so that we can power other people's communities and do many other great things with it.
Excellent. We're going to
So,
come back to that. So we can
okay.
just put a pin in that. Thank you very much. Before we get into it, I need to ask you, world traveler. My parents were world travelers. It must have skipped a generation. I'm sort of a tentative traveler, sort of like a musician who, there's some musicians who don't have to look at the fret. Some do. Some they just close their eyes and it pours out of them. Others it's very painstaking. I'm that person. I'm
Mhm.
always patting myself down, making sure that I have my phone, I have my wallet, everything's intact. So when did you get the travel bug?
I think I got it from my parents, actually. My mom was a teacher. My dad was an entrepreneur. He owned a large office supply chain. And every year for March break and Christmas, they always took us to really great places. It could have been a Disneyland at those times, but a lot of Caribbean islands. And they just really really focused on the experiences. Growing up, I had three other siblings. So it kind of just came natural to us. And most of my family has that bug still. Right now, as my mom is later on in her years, she's 83. I spend a month with her somewhere in the world, usually in the fall.
Wow, how
So,
nice.
so last year when you were talking to me from Bora Bora in Hawaii, I was with my mom, right?
Wow, how nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, so it's just always been part of us, but love skiing. So spent 64 days this year on the hill. Have lots of timeshares all over the world. So spend it in Vail, Whistler, Golden, BC, where one of my daughters was. And this year we went to Japan with a couple of friends and clients.
Very
So it was
nice.
awesome. So
Very nice. And the good thing is that we know is one thing that can't be replaced by AI or virtual reality. So
no,
that's
not those
still
experiences.
right. That still works. And by the way, I really do apologize for shortchanging HR.com by about a year. You said 27 years?
Yeah.
Sort of reminds me of the old Tennessee Williams bit where he would always claim to be 3 years younger than he was. But he said, 3 years I spent at the shoe factory. They don't count.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't count. Anyway, what would you say are the two or three most consequential changes in the space in those 27 years?
Mhm.
And how has you sort of started to get at it a little bit? And how has HR.com shifted in transition to meet the market as it's changed?
That's a really good question, and I think it's all about amplification. So, in 2004, 2005, when we opened up our platform to let people add content directly, that was a major shift. It was the first time we had user contributed content that gave you the ability to publish. So this is just as LinkedIn and those guys were coming into market. And I remember, it's actually quite a funny story. My second daughter, I went up to her room and I asked her what she was doing. She goes, "Mom, I'm on MySpace. I'm building web pages." And she's, of course, like 9, right? And
Right.
I'm like, "Oh, why would you do that?" And she's like, "Because it's easy. You just cut and paste other people's stuff and then style it the way you want." So I brought it back to the management team. Fortunately, most of those people are still with me. And I said, "I think we should let people publish direct." And they're like, "Oh no, they'll put bad things on there. They'll do nasty stuff." And I'm like, "I think we should." Like, first of all, we're a technology company. We're a community builder. We're not experts in HR, right? The people who are coming to HR, the people who are doing HR, they're experts. We need to get their opinion. And so we tried it, and that was a pivotal point between being a consolidator as opposed to direct content, getting content directly from users. Okay. Then I would say the second pivotal point probably came maybe 4 or 5 years ago when we started working more with big data, right? All the analytics, like being able to track what people really wanted, looking at personas, looking at career paths, really trying to map and personalize things. So you had to have a lot of data to do that, but it was the start of our effort to really understand what our members wanted and personalize the experience for everybody. And I think the third thing is right now, with all the applications of AI, we're at a very pivotal point in our career, right? In our journey of HR.com, because we have so much content, we have so much members, but we have to be able to differentiate what we offer, make it very personalized to them, but build it on scale. So we're working through that to really target, focus, personalize, and also really work on trust. So ironically, in 2004, when I said a lot of bad actors would come in and put bad stuff in, right now those bad actors and bad stuff is more than ever. Like we are constantly being bombarded with people trying to scrape all our content, scrape all our members, right? To build their own LLMs. We are constantly being bombarded by people who want to put bad links onto our site that aren't HR related. So we had to build like a content moderation blog to get rid of all the bad stuff, right? So we're not obviously we're not the scale of Facebook, but we only want HR content on our site. We do not want things that are selling, you know, barber shops or pornography or whatever, right? That it's not HR related. So we spend a lot of time moderating and limiting who can get access to our site and trying to keep our members safe. But it's harder and harder than ever, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's really interesting.
but
Um, yeah, okay.
this is all about trust, right? Because I think on all these public platforms, there's a lot of bad actors and a lot of not real people. And I'm afraid that people are going to use AI to automate a whole bunch of tasks that take out the human in it, right? To
Yes.
make it personalized or special and keep authentic conversations and relationships going. So I
Yeah.
think that's a big risk we have in this industry right now.
Yeah, I think so. You know, it's interesting in the two previous X-File newsletters that we did. One was on sycophantic AI, and it's just something you really got to be mindful about. And the one we put out earlier today is about AI addiction. And so
Mm,
there's some real collateral issues there. Because one of the things is that it could promote this kind of activity because what it does, among other things, is that you become overly dependent on the AI, you become overly credulous about what it serves up to you, and the more you do that, the more vulnerable you're going to be to some of those bad actors, to some of those bots, and some of that
mhm.
AI generated stuff. Yeah, it's a crazy world.
Let me just tell you a story that I think is very amusing. So, we I'm a big Ryan Reynolds fan. I'm Canadian, all right, and I have this. Um, I just love what he's done for the football club in the UK. I love. I don't like the movie stuff. I'm not a big TV fan, but I just love how he's social and he's out there and
Mm,
he's just a real human being, right?
right. He seems to
So
get it. Yeah.
he obviously has a big digital footprint. His father had Parkinson's. My husband has Parkinson's. He sits on the Michael J. Fox Parkinsonship's Foundation. We've supported that throughout my husband's journey. And last week he posted something about Parkinson's with Michael J. Fox. I think it was him posting, right?
Right.
And and I just put a comment on there like thanking the Michael J. Fox Foundation and him for all the work they've done. Because with all the research they're doing, I do believe there's a clear line of sight of getting a cure for Parkinson's that I feel safe to say that our kids won't have that experience when they're my husband's age, right? And just a thank you. I have had 10 Ryan Reynolds try to friend me, all fake,
All
right?
fake.
One of them actually had a friend of mine impersonate that, is that the right word?
Impersonate.
Impersonate that a friend and reached out as that fake friend to say, well, this isn't the real Ryan Reynolds. You should come here and meet him on a different platform. Right.
Wow.
So it was like two levels of fakeness to try to get me to
Yes.
connect to this person who clearly wasn't Ryan Reynolds. Right. So those are the bad actors that hurt relationships, hurt good people who are trying to do good work from using social platforms or sharing good stories. And I think AI is just making it easier for these imposters or people to succeed. So we've got to stop those.
Yeah, no, it's a real problem, and it's also a problem to the extent that it's a perception. So it does curb or does chill some other positive things you can be doing on AI because it injects its cynicism and that
Hmm.
element of threat. It's crazy. I don't know how we handle that. But speaking of AI, everywhere you go, AI, HR West, Unleashed, most recently, it's 24/7. Let me ask you two
Yeah.
questions. First, what's the one thing people, in your view, aren't talking about enough?
And they're
Apart
not
from what you're
talking.
talking about right now, because that's a big one.
Oh, well, I think the problem we have in the HR space is this is changing so fast. And when we're talking to vendors, like if you walk through Unleash or HRS or any HR trade show, every booth has AI in it. But the level of AI and how it changes the application or the adoption varies from like a little tool that maybe does grammar check to Asiatic agents who do the whole process for you, right? And there's more people at that 5% rule than at the 80% rule. But everybody's talking like they're at that 80% rule.
Right.
So you've really got to drill down and figure out what is it that is AI focused and does it work, right? Does it do what it was promised and still keep um like the human part that's needed for that job? Um like I'm all for optimization of boring, mundane jobs, repetitive tasks. But there's just some things you still need a person on.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I do think that sometimes these conversations about AI and HR converge around processes and efficiencies and
Yeah.
productivity, and they don't deal with some of the big issues, what's at stake, because there are quite a few things at stake. And this is a conversation I think that goes deeper than just about any other technology that has come down the pike. And that includes
Hmm.
social media, that includes even the internet, and things that even go back further than that. The second related question is, what are people getting wrong about AI?
Are they getting wrong? They're not experimenting enough, right? They're not curious enough. They're um, they're not like playing enough with it. They're afraid of the governance. They're afraid of the implications of how it could do their job. So they're not curious enough to figure out what could it do to help me personally, help my company. So I think it's just lower adoption than it should be because of fear.
Yes. Yes. Hence this podcast.
Hmm.
Which actually brings me to what else? What are some of the other initiatives HR.com is doing around AI, apart from, of course, supporting our mission here?
Yeah. So education for one. So podcasts like this is very important to our audience. One of the things that I think is most impactful that we're doing internally, we have this super smart guy, way smarter than me and most of our people, a gentleman named Mark Vickers, who runs our research. And every day he sends out a little tutorial on a tip on how you could use AI in your job.
Yes, I've barged into that list, and I will attest. Yes, it's very good.
Mhm. But so it's specific to us in HR, how we do our work, but how to create better research reports, how to use deep research, how to create podcasts better, how to edit, how to create videos, just little simple things that you wouldn't even know existed. How to create a course in AI,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Just all the possibilities. And I can tell you, he is not desperate for content. There is lots of things he can write about and showcase, and but he's doing it to get our staff educated on the possibilities of what they could do to improve their job.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart. It's almost like you're creating an environment, even if they're not pursuing all of these things, and they're all terrific. He sends them out at least once a day, and
Hmm.
they're really thoughtful and they're really good. The only thing is that and I kind of want to avoid this in the podcast. Again, going back to thinking about AI, about how it improves efficiencies and processes and so forth. Then when you talk about certain tools, things are moving so fast. What you're talking about this week as being a great solution gets leapfrogged in 3 weeks, and you need to talk about another solution. Maybe there's value in that. There sure is, but I think it narrows the conversation. What Mark is doing is really good. It's almost like a cultural thing. Even if you don't pursue these things, be mindful of it. And
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
the third email, people will say, hey, you know what, that resonates. Let me check this out, and then it opens their mind to the other possibilities. So
Hmm.
it's that's great. Any, I know you got a bunch of other things going on.
Yeah, so we're playing with some third-party tools as well. Everybody's recording meetings these days. Um, but recording them to build actionable insights, recording them to kind of talk about sentiment, recording them to track progress. So working with a vendor called For a Day, super impressed with their customer support on just, building open, more honest communication amongst our staff, amongst our partners, amongst vendors, so that everybody gets access to the archives, can see what was talked about, everybody agrees on what was discussed, create meaningful follow-up. So I think that's a really good productivity booster, right? And keeping people accountable. So love stuff like that. Working with a couple, well, one supplier specifically for big data, augmenting profiles, validating that they're real people. There's just so many opportunities for communities like HR.com to really move the bar and move it quickly. But as you know, these things could be top shelf today, and Google or Microsoft could come out and replace them
Right.
tomorrow, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really hard to thread that. And,
Mm.
at some point you got to take a leap, even knowing that, everything's sort of under that Damocles sword of what those people are going to do. They do one little thing and it could change the whole market.
Yeah.
A year from now, what do you think we'll be talking about with respect to AI? Look into your crystal
Hopefully
ball.
not tariffs
Let's hope. Let's hope.
or politics, but um, I really hope we're talking about productivity gains, right? Really, like right now, I read an article last night that there's so many mental health issues. People are just burnt out. They're having a hard time showing up 100% at work. And of course, there's apps and AI for that, right? Um, But I think until we can get over that, we're not going to get the productivity gains we need.
Okay.
So if we can be focused on increasing productivity per employee, that would be really important.
Okay. Well, in AI years, that means we're going to have to revisiting a 1 year projection, probably in about 3 months.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
that's the math. Anyway, Deb, I really do appreciate this. And I appreciate for being brave to come on our first Riverside podcast. People who are seeing this, thanks to our production team, we're not taken backstage. You didn't see any of the glitches, and I'm assuming this came out a lot better than my expectations. So anyway, again, thanks, Deb. I do appreciate it, and I'd like to have you back within those 3 months and talk about some of this stuff again.
Sounds good, Charles. Take care.
Today, I spoke with Debbie McGrath, the CEO and founder of HR.com. She spoke to me from her home in Jackson's Point, Ontario, which is from the still sovereign nation of Canada. This is Charles. This is Charles Epstein for the X Factor podcast. Thanks for listening and watching.